Absolutely stacked episode of Carving Up Live on tap for you guys tonight. Going to start with a historic night in the NBA. Bam Adebayo drops 83 points, ladies and gentlemen. The second most in the history of the NBA. And yet some people are crapping on that today. I'll discuss why that is nonsense on Carving Up the Context in just a few minutes. Also get to the NFL. Maxx Crosby is not going to be a Raven. The Ravens pulled the rug out from under the Vegas Raiders. What this means for Baltimore, I think this is actually a good thing for them. What it means for Vegas as well as for Maxx Crosby. Get to that. Steve Kerr had some comments the other day about shortening the NBA season to about 72 games. I completely agree with him. I'll explain why later on. My first mock draft, Bryson Carver's mock draft 1.0, that's coming up in about 45 minutes. And at the end of today's show, going to discuss SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, about to hit the 127th consecutive game, scoring 20 points or more. That will be an NBA record. What that'll mean for him, discuss that, and how he can seal the MVP over the next few days. So Carving It Up, as it usually is absolutely loaded on a Wednesday. So let's drop the V, baby. Here we go. Evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. I am Bryson Carver. I really didn't think, guys, it's fantastic to be with you. I really did not think we would have a more power-packed show, at least this week, than what we had on Monday with free agency frenzy and everything going on. And it turns out the show, or the segment that led my show on Monday, turns out that's just been reversed. As you heard in the intro there, Maxx Crosby is still a Raider, not a Raven, although I think Baltimore dodged a bullet. I'll talk about that in about 10 minutes. But just history happening left and right in the NBA. Last night with Bam dropping 80 freaking 3 points. We'll touch on that in a second. And then SGA is on the verge of history himself tomorrow night. And again, I think he can very well lock up the MVP. And that may shock some people because I think I've been painted over the last year or so, maybe 10 months really, or I guess 9 months since OKC won their title last year. Oh, you're the SGA hater. I'm really not. I just hate at times how he plays the game. But as far as the player, the skills and the accomplishments, there's no question about it. Who Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. Touch on that. Mock draft coming up in 45 minutes. Cannot wait. My first mock draft. We'll be doing this each and every Wednesday on the show. So very excited to get into all of those things. But let's start with a historic night in the NBA that came out of nowhere. But first, words I thought would never, ever exit my mouth. Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat dropped 83 points last night against the Washington Wizards. Let's just show what Bam did last. He was unbelievable. 83. This doesn't look real. 83 points, 9 rebounds, 20 of 43 from the field. A lot of shots, 7 of 22 from 3. He's probably never taken 22 threes in his life, even when playing pickup ball. And he's 36 from 43 from the free throw line. And you see kind of the fine print down there. The second most points ever in an NBA game, the most free throws made in an NBA game, and the fourth most points in a quarter in an NBA game. He got 31 in the first quarter to start the night against Washington. That's when you knew it was going to be something special. So initially, I'll be honest, the Steve Kerr segment was going to be Carving Up the Context, but given the fact that we just witnessed history last night, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, and I hate that we have to do this, but I'm going to defend Bam Adebayo scoring the second most points in a game in the history of the NBA. I repeat, the history. 80 years going strong of the National Basketball Association, because today, it started last night, it bled into this morning with the coverage surrounding this. You have folks, by the way, who I have a lot of respect for. Tim McMahon, who's done a great job covering the Dallas Mavericks in particular. And I thought he showed a masterclass in journalism in questioning Nico Harrison, post-Luka Doncic trade, and how all that went down. Tim McMahon's great. But you had Tim McMahon, you had others, you had, I think, Mad Dog Russo this morning on First Take, just talking about it was bad basketball, and it was, I mean, it didn't look like they were playing the game the right way, just forcing the ball to Bam. Getting to try and chase Kobe's second place all time. Of course, the late great Kobe Bryant dropped 81 points back in 2006. And listen, it's a marriage of two things in terms of the backlash that Bam is getting. Is number one, there are always going to be those, and I respect this guy, but Mad Dog Russo falls in this category of you're just, I don't care who you are, If you're part of this current generation, you're just never going to measure up to the guys of the past. That's just the way it is. I mean, again, respect to Mad Dog, but if you ever seen the top 5 teams of all time, it excluded, like, I think the most recent team was like the 83 Sixers, who, by the way, belong on the list for the record. But okay, so no 96 Bulls or 01 Lakers or 2017 Warriors. None of those teams, they're not one of the 5 best. Okay. But the bigger category, and I want to preface what I'm saying by saying this. Kobe Bryant, I think I view Kobe higher than most. Of course, you got those that think Kobe's the GOAT. I think that's ludicrous. But I view Kobe Bryant as the greatest Laker of all time. Not the greatest player to ever play for the Lakers. That'd be LeBron and Kareem. The greatest Laker, start to finish, 20 years, 1996 to 2016, all-time legend. Greatest scorer in the history of that franchise, won 5 championships, should have more than 1 MVP. We all know that. And I think Kobe Bryant is on the Mount Rushmore of all-time basketball legends. In no order, Kobe Bryant, LeBron, Michael Jordan, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those 2 are the 4 greatest players ever. With respect to Magic, Bird, Duncan, Steph, Shaq, anybody, those are the 4 best. And I will go so far as to say this, because it's the truth. Y'all know Steph Curry's my favorite, not basketball player, athlete, ever. I do not have a Steph Curry jersey hanging in my wall in my room. I've got a Kobe Bryant number 24 jersey. Love Kobe. Love him. So with that being said, this idea that, Kobe got 81 the right way. He did it the way you're supposed to do it and what have you. Okay, because he was more efficient. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that a pro-Kobe Bryant argument would include the word that I thought Kobe fans hated, efficiency. Because if you look at the numbers, Bam Adebayo, 20 of 43 from the field. Kobe Bryant was 28 of 46, so far more efficient. Kobe Bryant, 7 of 13 from 3. Bam, 7 of 22 from three-point range. First of all, I thought Kobe's, gunslinging, taking bad shots, I thought that's kind of what we all agreed. I shouldn't say we all agreed. Those of us that love Kobe, what we all loved about the guy. He forced 1 million shots. He infamously, and we're about to go over this list in just a moment, infamously took 50 shots, still an NBA record, in his final game when he dropped 60 back in 2016. That's what we love about Kobe. Kobe didn't pass. Kobe took 1 million shots. It was like a running joke. Shaq, pass the ball, Kobe. Remember Shaq? He told the story about, Kobe Bryant at Kobe's memorial years back, and he said that there were teammates complaining that Kobe went past the ball and what have you. And, Shaq said, hey, Kobe, there's no I in team. And according to Shaq, Kobe said, yeah, but there's an ME in that mofo. Like, that's what we loved about Kobe Bryant. And so now the argument today is, hey, Kobe, way more efficient in his 80-point game. The Bam wasn't his. Okay. Bam didn't even take, if you want to look at the most shots ever taken in a basketball game in NBA history, can we go over that list? Because it is extensive. We can show you the top 5. No Bam. There's Kobe twice. Kobe took 50 shots in 2016. Jordan took 49 in 93. Jalen Brunson, Kobe Bryant, Chris Webber took 47 each. So no Bam Adebayo there. Let's go to the next 5. Okay, still no Bam. It's Kobe, Cade Cunningham this season. Kobe again. DeJounte Murray, that was a weird one. And Russell Westbrook. And then you go to the next 5. And finally, Bam Adebayo shows up on the list. Kobe Bryant, Bam Adebayo, Westbrook, Jordan. Most shots ever taken in a basketball game. Bam Adebayo's last night, 13th in NBA history as it pertains to most shots taken in a basketball game. So this idea that, it was, there's like a level of, we have to put an asterisk next to it because he took so many shots. There have been guys, including Kobe, multiple times over, who've taken more shots than Bam and didn't score quite as many points. By the way, something on that too. If just anybody could score 83, trust me, they'd have done it by now. There's a reason that the 80-point club includes these people. Wilt, infamously 100 points back in 1962. Kobe, 81 points in 06. Bam Adebayo, 83 points last night. 3 guys ever have done it. Frankly, if you'd asked me coming into the game, or not necessarily coming into the game, but coming into the season, hey, someone's going to pass Kobe, I'd have said probably Luka. Probably Luka because he's a volume shooter. SGA, maybe Anthony Edwards, one of the younger perimeter scoring guards. Jokic, probably not, just because he's so great of a distributor. Those have been my 3 picks. Bam Adebayo averages 19 points a game, or at least did coming into this one. Would have never been on mine or anyone's purview. But also this, I want to address this aspect of it. Because folks have attacked, or not, I should say attack, that's too far. Folks have tried to like put an asterisk next to this. Like, oh, man, the Wizards, garbage. By the way, they're awful. We're in mid-March and they've won 16 games. They're a bad basketball team. They're trying to lose. Can anybody maybe go back and look? I was like 3 years old at the time, or I guess technically 2.5 years old at the time when Kobe dropped 81. Maybe I'm misremembering incorrectly. Did the Toronto Raptors like win the title that year? No, they were the 12th seed in the East. So Kobe did it against a bad team in his own right. Well, Bryson, Erik Spoelstra should not have left Bam Adebayo in to try and chase that second all-time scoring record because the Heat were annihilating the Wizards from start to finish. I look at that as a pro-Spoelstra argument than an anti-one. And I'm going to talk about Steve Kerr later. He made a point the other day that I totally agree with. I'll discuss that later. I swear by Steve Kerr. I think he is, if you don't think that guy is an all-time legendary coach, we don't have time to get into today. I don't think you know basketball. Erik Spoelstra's in that same category. Steve Kerr one time back in 2016. Warriors fans will remember exactly what I'm talking about. December 2016. Klay Thompson is going on one of them Klay Thompson eaters. He's got 60 points in 29 minutes. 60 points through three quarters. But the Warriors are annihilating the Pacers through three quarters. They're up like 40. Klay doesn't play a single dribble in the fourth quarter. Personally, I think that's a mistake by Steve Kerr. Well, you can't just pour it on. Man, you're a pro basketball team, man. Play defense. if you want a triple team, which, by the way, the Wizards were triple teaming Bam late. They didn't want him to get to the 80-point mark or then pass Kobe. They don't want to be the guys in the background of that highlight footage. This idea, folks, that, you gotta play the right way or you gotta, then stop him. Then stop Bam from going for 31 points in the first quarter. From going for, what was it? I think it was 41 at halftime. Bam at his career high at halftime. So he's like, hey, let's see how far I can push this. Stop him from breaking the Heat's all-time single-game scoring record once, I believe, held by LeBron James. And stop him from passing Kobe for the second most points ever scored in an NBA game ever. So I think it's treating the Wizards, and they're an awful team, we know this, but it's treating the Wizards as if they're like this, as if this is high school basketball, where it's just this one team's got like three guys that are going D1 and another team that's can barely field a team. You're NBA players, stop them. You're an NBA coach, maybe triple team Bam a little bit earlier. Don't get mad at them for smoking you. So, and to go back on the Kobe portion of this, because, I've heard a few people talk about, man, Kobe's rolling over his grave. Nick Young said that, and David Fizdale last night on NBA TV, like, man, Kobe would be. First of all, let's play Bam Adebayo with the great Scott Van Pelt last night, discussing this accomplishment, and then play a bite from Kobe Bryant. Bam Adebayo, when asked about the historic nature of passing Kobe all time for the second highest scoring game in NBA history, this is what he said.
And 81 is going to stand there forever as well. To chase that and to chase him, what did that mean? What did that feel like to know that was a possibility?
That was my idol growing up. I watched how he approached the game. With that much focus, that laser focus, being locked in 48 minutes of a game. And, obviously to see him do it that way, special moment. Now, when I got to the free throw line, I was like, all right, you got 81, but we got to make these free throws. And, being able to never meet him, in my mind, it's like, I wonder what he would say to me at this point.
What do you think?
He'll probably tell me do it again.
and I don't think he's necessarily that far off. But for those that are in their feelings or just like really, really bothered that not only was Kobe passed, but Kobe was passed by a guy who isn't even, I won't say a natural scorer. Bam's an all-star player. Bam's an excellent player. He was on Team USA. Then this last Olympic run was quite good for us. But scoring is not the first thing we think of when we think of Bam Adebayo. This is what Kobe Bryant said in an interview, I think about 7-8 years ago, when discussing his records potentially being broken. Take a listen.
I don't understand why, I don't know if people want that or want to have this kind of contentious thing where you don't want records to be broken or people to surpass. You should be happy
Right.
for the person that comes after you to be able to surpass things that you've done. I mean, like,
Right. For sure.
yeah, it's kind of juvenile, I think.
Yes. Listen, it's disrespectful for any of us, at least I think, to, assume what Kobe would or would not have thought, or what anybody who's no longer with us would feel about a certain situation. But what I think Kobe implicitly understood, and what I think all legendary people in their field understand, my job, and we know how Kobe felt about growing the game of basketball, how the ambassador that he was worldwide for the sport. My job is to get everything I can possibly get out of my career. And is there not a better example of that than Kobe? And set the next generation up for bigger and better things. So frankly, I think, again, don't want to speak for him, but I think he would have probably called Bam, or at the very least put a social media post wherever, congrats to Bam Adebayo, what have you. So on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, anybody that's trashing this or acting like there's some asterisk, listen, Kobe dropped 81 on a 12 seed. And well, he was more efficient. Oh, so efficiency is why we love Kobe Bryant? Is that it? Congrats to Bam Adebayo. Absolutely incredible night. Listen, when he got to 31 in the first quarter, say I'm not watching the game initially because I'm not watching Heat and Wizards, on a random Tuesday night. But then I get the Twitter notification. Bam's got 31 the first. I'm like, holy crap, he's going to get 60. And then once you get to third quarter and he's got 60, like he could pass Kobe here. Like he's going to score 81 tonight if the Heat let him play it out. So congrats to Bam. By the way, I just want to say this. Obviously, Bam is with the best women's basketball player alive, A'ja Wilson, who was at the game. It was even at his press conference last night. Bam invited her up. It was really cool. That kid, whatever, if this thing is endgame, and it appears to be the case between Bam and A'ja, holy smokes, that kid's going to be a force to be reckoned with in 15, 20 years. My goodness. But congrats to Bam Adebayo. Unbelievable NBA history. We should all be lucky to say that we witnessed it happen. Let's shift to the NFL. Because, initially you think this is going to lead the show, and then somebody scores 83 points in an NBA game, is Maxx Crosby. So we led the show talking Monday about how over the weekend, I think it was Friday night, he had been traded to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 first-round picks. And I came out on the show Monday. Ravens fans were giving me crap for it. That's fine. I said this is not so much this is a mistake for Baltimore, but doesn't make them contenders. First of all, they have a quarterback who struggles in the playoffs. Second of all, new head coach. We got to see how he plays out, Jesse Minter. And third of all, they've lost multiple key players in free agency. Draymond Jones, Tyler Linderbaum, like key guys as they are likely to this group. Maxx Crosby's awesome. He alone is not going to fix a team that ain't 9 a year ago. Albeit different coach, and Lamar's dealt with injuries, but that was what they were in 2025. Well, got the news last night that the trade was rescinded. That Baltimore got cold feet, backed out of the deal. Eric DeCosta, who's the GM of the Ravens, he had a quote. We weren't able to pull up the soundbite, but Eric DeCosta said, quote, "One of the key things is you bring a player in and try and get as much information as you can. We did that, and we were not able to complete the process of acquiring the player based on our assessment of the situation." End quote. That assessment of the situation is the fact that they didn't like his medical situation. Is the fact that Maxx Crosby has dealt with knee stuff last year. He is 29 years old, which, by regular human being standards is quite young. For a pass rusher, that's kind of middle to potentially end of your prime, depending on what your physical situation is. So the trade's been rescinded. So Baltimore gets both of their first-round picks, this year's pick and next year's pick, back. Maxx Crosby as a Raider. We'll see how that plays out. Discuss that in a few minutes. On the Baltimore side, this is not a shot at Maxx Crosby. He's awesome. I think top 5 pass rusher in the game. Ravens just dodged a bullet big time. Now, whether this was Ravens are a smart franchise. I can admit that as a Steelers fan. Ravens do business well. Whether this was a ploy by the Baltimore Ravens to make this deal and like maybe, I guess, like potentially lower the asking price for a guy like Maxx Crosby, whatever their strategy was, this morning, bam, they signed Trey Hendrickson. who's in his own right is an excellent pass rusher. Not Maxx Crosby good, but we can show you his last 2 fully healthy seasons. Trey Hendrickson, pretty good. 14th among pass rushers and tackles, 5th in forced fumbles, 1st in sacks between 2023 and 2024 among edge rushers. The reason I mentioned those 2 seasons is because those were his last 2 healthy years. Isn't it kind of fitting that a horribly run franchise in Cincinnati who ends up getting absolutely nothing for this great pass rusher, he ends up going to their biggest rival in the division, the Baltimore Ravens. It's like it's classic Bengals doing Bengals stuff. But on this for the Ravens, this is win now. I absolutely agree. Derrick Henry's not getting any younger. Lamar Jackson, I don't think we necessarily expect him to have forget Tom Brady, but even a 15-year runway of being a top 10 quarterback, like, I don't know, like a Phillip Rivers or a Big Ben or somebody, because A, has a medical history that isn't ideal, and also the way he plays the game, he's developed far better of a pocket passer than he was coming into the league, but he still likes to use his legs. And last year, there were limitations with that because of the injuries that he suffered, so we don't know how long Lamar Jackson is still going to be Lamar Jackson MVP candidate quarterback. So this is a win-now situation for the Ravens. With that said, Trey Hendrickson can help you win now. Trey Hendrickson, by all accounts, appears to be healthier than Maxx Crosby. And the Ravens are one of the best drafting teams in the entire NFL. They'll probably hit on these 2 picks this year and next year. Whereas those go to Vegas now had the Maxx Crosby trade gone through. So you still get an excellent pass rusher and don't have to give up anything for him. And you get your first-round picks back. So this is a good, if you're a Ravens fan, I was talking to one last night who was down the dumps about this. He's like, oh my gosh, like this is a disaster. Once the signing happened with Trey Hendrickson, he was kind of like, okay, maybe I see what they were doing here. And so, listen, I hate to admit it, but fair's fair. I'm nothing if I'm not consistent and objective. As a Steelers fan, I can say it's a good day for Ravens fans. It's a good day for the Ravens organization. Still get a great pass rusher, 4-year contract. You've got him for the long haul, for the remainder of his prime, for the remainder of this window that the Ravens hope to have with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And then for Vegas, it gets complicated now because, listen, they've crushed it in free agency. And reportedly, the cap situation with Maxx Crosby still being in the roster, the reports are it doesn't look like that's going to, if they keep him, it's going to affect their other free agent signings like Nakobe Dean, Linderbaum, guys like that. But they poured in the defense. Stokes, they've brought him back. They've invested the defense side of the ball. They've brought in Tyler Linderbaum as their center. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick in the draft and go to Vegas. You've got Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. Like, they've got a nice young core that can be able to develop and being a real team next year. The problem is either you're going to keep Maxx Crosby, who's still great, but I don't imagine the relationship improved over the last 24 hours than where it had been. Hey, you tried to trade me, and then, oh, wait, no, I'm back. Or you move Maxx Crosby, but you ain't getting 2 first-round picks in return this go-around. You'll get a first. No, it's Maxx Crosby. You'll get at least 1 first. Maybe you'll get like a first and a good quality starter potentially. Teams like Dallas are apparently in the mix. Like, there are other teams that are calling the Raiders about Maxx Crosby, understandably so. But once your medical history is out there, and once a team as well run as Baltimore is like, we don't love what we're seeing here. Like, we will pull out of this deal potentially at the expense of our ability to compete in 2026 because we don't trust this guy's long-term health. And so Vegas can still get a return for him. Frankly, I'll be honest. If I'm a Raiders fan, I was talking, shout out to my good buddy Chris Mahi, who's a diehard Raiders fan. I was talking to him yesterday when this fell through. And I said, I'll be honest. I think the best option for Vegas is to keep Maxx Crosby at this point. Because as talented as this roster, I shouldn't say as talented as roster, as much young talent they're trying to bring in and some of the free agents they brought in, there's something to be said, and this goes for all sports, all team sports. There's something to be said about having that good veteran presence in the locker room. You're trying to build a new winning culture. Obviously, Maxx Crosby, outside of 2021, has not played a lot of winning football. So he's gone through, he's gone through the adversities and the trials of playing for a bad team, but still balling out in his own right. And he can be able to show these guys the way. He can show them how to do business, to be a professional, all these things, even when stuff like this situation doesn't go his way and, in fact, lowers his value on the NFL trade market. So at this point, unless I get an offer that blows me away, which you're not going to get an offer that includes 2 first-round picks in this go-around now that people know about Maxx Crosby's knee, or at least are more aware of his knee situation, where it's at right now, I'd keep him at this point. If he wants to stay. Now, if he says this relationship's untenable, we've got no sort of inclination or information that would state that, I would try and keep Maxx Crosby in this roster if I'm a Raiders fan. Obviously, you'd have liked to have the 2 first-round picks. Talked about that on Monday. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to get Mendoza. They've got, including Mendoza, they'll have 4 first-round picks with the next 2 draft and a smart young coach in Kubiak. And oh my gosh, the future's still bright. Future still is bright for this team. Look how they spent in free agency. Look at the quarterback they're about to get. Vegas is going to be fine. And Baltimore may have not went the way they wanted it to. Whether this was strategic or not, who knows? It's a good day to be a Ravens fan today. We still got a great pass rusher, and we kept our 2 first-round picks. Because I'll be, again, with or without Maxx Crosby, I do not see this team as a contender in the AFC next year. Like, there's ceiling in my book. Win the AFC North, maybe win a playoff game if you get the right matchup. Because I'm not as high on this roster as I was 2-3 years ago. They've lost too many impact players. Now, they may replace those in the draft, but as of right now, I don't view them as that. But today, good day to be a Ravens fan. We're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, the mock draft coming up in 15 minutes, by the way. I did want to discuss Steve Kerr. This was initially going to be carving up the context. Steve Kerr went on record the other day and was like, yeah, I think we need to shorten the NBA season. Touch on that, why I agree with Steve Kerr. Mock Draft 1.0, first mock draft of this NFL draft process. It'll be coming out each and every Wednesday on this show. Very, very excited about that. And then SGA himself, in a different vein than Bam Adebayo, but he himself is trying to make NBA history. That's all coming up in 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Wednesday, a jam-packed Wednesday show. We got NBA history that was made last night that could be made tomorrow night. You got NFL draft stuff coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes. You got a trade involving a superstar that got rescinded. Unbelievable stuff going on right now. And by the way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Usually I reserve this for like the Browns or something. But this franchise ain't much better. At least I got a Lombardi. The Jets signed Geno Smith yesterday, which if you've checked out my dear friend Barry Grant Jr., if you checked out his Instagram, or if you haven't, I should say, keep the show on. But check out, he is a decade-long time Geno Smith hater and a Jets fan. That broke him yesterday. I talked to him on the phone yesterday. It broke him. So you'll have to check that stuff out. All Even podcast is going to be something tomorrow. But before we get into our next segment, check out our Carving It Up merchandise. Scan the QR code on the top left corner of your screen. You can check out hats, t-shirts, the whole bit. We got all kinds of merch, anything you can possibly think of. We got bags, we got beach towels if you want to get prepared for the summer, the whole bit. If you want to get some stuffed bears for loved ones in your family, we got that with a Carving Up hoodie on. We've got everything you could possibly imagine as it pertains to merchandise. So check that out. Scan the QR code on the top left corner of your screen and check out our Carving It Up merch. Also, if you want to check out our other amazing content creators here on the grid, they've got merch too. We've got All Even Podcast. We've got the Metropolitan Report. We've got Saturday Morning Tailgate. We got the Cowboys Camp and Mike and Josh. Anything you can possibly imagine. We've got that merch on the Grid Network website. Scan the QR code right there. If you just want Grid Network merch that just says the Grid, GRYD, we've got that too. Hats, t-shirts, the whole bit. So check that stuff out as well. Okay, So again, as I said earlier, this was initially going to be carving up the context, but then Bam has the second greatest scoring game in history and gets ripped for it. That's going to be how we lead the show. So Steve Kerr, head coach of my beloved Golden State Warriors, who are just having the season from hell. I mean, come in with championship expectations, got off to a rough start, then got hot, won 12 of 16, and at that point, that 12th win, Jimmy Butler blows his ACL a few weeks later, or 2 weeks later. Steph Curry has a knee injury January 30th against Detroit. He hasn't played since. Came out today. He's given us another 5 games. It's been the season from hell. But Steve Kerr, who I believe and go so far as to say no is an outstanding coach, was talking the other day about shortening the NBA season. Now, this has been a topic of conversation over the last few years as it pertains to load management, as it pertains to tanking, as it pertains to all of these different things. Steve Kerr, very respected voice in the NBA. Not only is he coached with the Warriors for, this is 12 years now, but he's a 5-time champion as a player with the Bulls and the Spurs, and he was a great GM in Phoenix and great broadcaster for TNT. Steve Kerr is one of the most respected individuals in the NBA, so his voice holds weight. This is what he said about shortening the season.
I know this will not be a popular opinion in the league office, but I will continue to say it because it's obvious we need to play fewer games. We need to take 10 games off the schedule. I think it would be great for the league. And I get it. It's revenue, and you'd have to get everybody to agree to take a little less money. And that's a really hard thing to do. But what I know about the league, about coaching, about how hard it is to play the modern game with the pace and the space, I think it would be a more competitive and healthier league if we played fewer games.
I couldn't agree more with him, and here's why. So ESPN came out with some research that I found really, really interesting. So this season, players have combined to cover 37.1 miles per game this season at an average speed of 4.29 miles per hour. Both are highs since that tracking began in the 2013-14 season. In addition, according to ESPN research, scoring is higher because of pace of play. That's reflecting the fact that teams this year are averaging 115.2 points per game. That's the highest since 1969-1970. So highest scoring output in 56 years, basically. And so what I would categorize this argument as is a quality versus quantity argument. Now, as Kerr mentioned, and he's right, getting the NBA to shorten the season to take, 10 games off our schedule, which means no ticket sales from that games, no TV, no TV money. We know that's where the NBA bulk of their, revenue comes from. They're selling out arenas, but they're making their money through Amazon, through ESPN, through Peacock, and what have you. So the chances of them doing this are slim to none. But if the NBA cares about, or say they care about tanking, about the health of their players, about the quality of the game, about it being a more entertaining experience. Frankly, if they care about having a sense of urgency more so than they do now in the regular season, cutting 10 games out of schedule will do that by default. Let's talk about the injury component. How many soft tissue injuries because of the pace of play? Again, I just mentioned it. This year, players are traveling 37.1 miles per game this year at an average speed of 4.29 miles per hour. You've had Jason Tatum blow his Achilles. You've had Tyrese Halliburton tear his Achilles. You've had Kyrie Irving suffer a soft tissue injury. I think he blew his ACL. Kevin Durant had an injury years back with a very up-tempo pace Warriors team. Klay Thompson himself, up-tempo Warriors team, has had 2 catastrophic injuries. More so now than we've seen in years past because the game is much faster. There's more athleticism than ever. It's more, not just more three-point shots now than ever, but guys are driving to the basket more than they used to. Again, the mid-range has, for better or for worse, and I think it's a combination of the two, kind of been phased out of the game to a certain degree, which I don't think is the greatest thing aesthetically, but that's the reality. From an injury perspective, by definition, taking away less games. And compounding the season, a 6 month regular season into 72 games as opposed to 82 in that 6 month span. Yeah, you can spread those games out more. So in the injury component, you have that. From the tanking component, okay, if you get off to a rough start and you're like, yep, the season isn't for us. If you're the Jazz or the Wizards or the Pacers getting off to a horrible start with Halliburton out, it's yep, that's just in our season. We're going to tank for a high pick. Well, you got less games to get a higher pick. So by definition, it will severely injure a team's chance to tank, in part because the play-in tournament, which I think was a good strategy in order to combat tanking, to where a team who's the 10 or 11 seeds like, hey, we could still get to the playoffs, which is far better for your team morale, for your culture, than winning 25 games and getting the third pick. I think we'd all agree with that. Now the gap is shortened in terms of, number of games back that the bad teams are from the play-in tournament than they are now. For safety of the game, for quality of the game rather, you won't have guys taking off as much as they do. You can, I don't want to say eliminate back-to-backs, but you can just about get rid of the majority of them, which the NBA has worked on doing over time. Get rid of back-to-backs. And again, sense of urgency. I've said this before. The NFL is the king of television. We know that. College football is the prince of television. Yes, football is just in our American DNA. That is our sport. We love it. We consume it, all of it. Part of the reason that's the case, in the NFL, 17 games. College football, 12 games. Sense of urgency. Every single game has immense weight. Baseball, man, a random Friday night in May isn't going to make or break your season. A random Tuesday in Sacramento in January isn't going to be the difference in you making the playoffs or not. If it is, you're probably not that good of a team anyway. It's not going to make or break your year. I would argue that of all of the major sports that we have here in America, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, you name it, the biggest gap in talent between college and professional is basketball, particularly men's basketball. Now you watch, of course, again, the talent isn't supposed to be as good as the pros, but if you watch college basketball compared to the NBA, it's night and day what these guys can do. That's just reality, except for a safe few who have futures in the NBA. Most of these guys will either be playing overseas, have a very brief NBA career, G League career, or they may not play professionally at all. Why does college basketball get the ratings that it gets during March Madness? Sense of urgency. Every single game could be your last. Like that's the reality of it. Now, I'm not by no means am I advocating, hey, just make the NBA playoffs like the NFL playoffs. Make it a one and done. Absolutely not. Whole point of a series, baseball, basketball, hockey, determine who the best team is over the course of a series, whether it be 5 games or 7 games. What you do by shortening the season, slightly greater sense of urgency. We saw this, I'm not saying shortening it this much, but we saw this during the COVID year of Major League Baseball. What were they, like 60 games? Now that's a little too extreme because COVID, it postponed the season to July. World Series were in October. It condensed the season to 60. Not saying go that far. But every game held greater significance. There was a greater sense of, hey, we got to kind of stack some wins here. We got to get some momentum in a quicker pace, just the way you do in the NFL and college football. You could introduce that to the NBA. It would reduce tanking. It would add a greater, height. It would heighten the senses in terms of the play-in tournament. I think, and by the way, by virtue of having less games, because of the pace of play is faster than it's ever been in the history of the league, you reduce injuries. More time in between games. Part of the reason folks have talked about, there's more guys from non-domestic players that are dominating the league more than ever. You got Shai and Jokic, Luka and Wemby, all these guys. Why is that the case? Well, it's pretty simple. And I think everybody who knows basketball knows this. The U.S. is one of the, among countries that, where basketball is a fixture, the U.S. is one of the worst at developing. And we did it to ourselves. It's called the AAU system. It's terrible. Kids are playing 3-4 games a day, hardly any practices. Overseas, a lot of practice, not that many games. So from a fundamental perspective, I know that's like a word that turns people off, fundamentals, but it matters. Look at Jokic and Luka, far from great athletes, but 2 of the 4 best players in the world, arguably. You get more out of your talent, and you can cultivate that and develop it more than we allow you to in the United States. And part of that's reflected in our 82-game schedule in the NBA. Reduce injuries, reduce tanking, create a greater sense of urgency. And the quality is going to be better because you get slightly less games, more practices. The teams can work on stuff that they can't. I remember there was a point in time to ref. Again, I'm a Warriors fan. There was a point in time, I think it was late November, early December. The Warriors were like on a long road trip. And the way the schedule was laid out, remember Kerr was talking to the media like, we haven't had a single practice because we haven't had time. Time for the guys' bodies to recover, back-to-backs, like plane travels. We haven't had time to practice. So I think Kerr's absolutely right. Well, Bryson, hockey as a... Okay. Respectfully, do you think the NBA should structure their business model after hockey? Who gets a fraction of the audience the NBA does? The NHL in particular gets a fraction of the audience the NBA does? Is in the national fixture way less than the NBA is? I don't think you should model your business after lesser leagues. That's where I'm at. So I think Steve Kerr is absolutely right on his take that the NBA season needs to be shortened. What do we have next? Okay, so mock drafts. Let me get these last two graphics up here. While we do, Steve Kerr also did double down on his take last night before the Warriors game against the Bulls, a game which we blew with, minute and a half left up to 8 and we lost. He said, my number one concern is the quality of the NBA product. I think limiting the schedule would encompass a lot of issues: player health, player availability, and tanking. He goes on, I think all of that stuff would improve. And I think the quality of play would improve. We don't practice much at all. If we had those extra days for practice and a fresher team, the quality of the product would be better. And absolutely, that goes for anything. If you're training for a job, maybe this isn't apples and oranges, but if you're training for a job, the more repetitions you can get before starting the job, the better. As opposed to couple practices, hey, throw you in the fire. Now, sometimes trial by fire, or, surviving in the deep end, however you want to phrase it, sometimes that is the best way to teach depending on what the situation is. I don't think that's the case for basketball. So that's where I'm at. We do have, though, quickly before we go to mock draft, we do have a trade. And there had been rumors that Dallas was potentially going to make a move in this. So according to Adam Schefter, the Dallas Cowboys are trading Osa Odigizua, their excellent nose tackle, to the San Francisco 49ers in exchange for a 2026 third-round pick. That's a really good move. Credit where it is due. I talked about this on Monday's show. I've been hard on Jerry. I maintain I think the Micah trade was a horrible move by Dallas. But what they got in return for him, what they were able to parlay, obviously they acquire Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers. You got Kenny Clark from the Micah trade. You made the move for Quinnen Williams. All of a sudden, you have an excellent D-line. If you can get a great edge rusher, that would be the icing on the cake. Trey Hendrickson's off the market, so that's not an option right now for Dallas. But now you almost had too much depth on the interior of your defensive line. Well, now you move Osa Odigizua to San Francisco, get a third-round pick. Maybe you can upgrade your secondary more. Maybe you can address your offensive line early in the draft. We're about to get into mock draft. This is a great tackle draft. You can address that earlier and potentially address the secondary in the second round, the third round. So I think this is a good trade for Dallas. As for San Francisco, listen, few organizations in the NBA, or NBA, few organizations in the NFL do defensive line better than San Francisco. So that's where we're at. All right. This is going to be the first of many. So the NFL draft is about a month and a half away. What is it? I think it's April 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. April 23rd, just quick math. Yeah, April 23rd from Pittsburgh, PA, by the way. So there'll be plenty during our Grid Network draft show in a month and a half. There's been plenty of Steelers shout-outs. You can make no mistake of that. But the draft is in a month and a half. And I thought, let's start it now. Each and every Wednesday night on this show is going to be the newest edition of my mock draft. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. My first 4 picks of the draft, which go as follows: Raiders, Jets, Cardinals, Titans. Again, no question about who the first pick will be. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. We know the Raiders have been looking for that franchise guy for a long time now. Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner, by far the best quarterback in college football, national champion. Again, showed to me, especially in the playoff and in that Big Ten championship against Ohio State, a certain level of toughness that I love to see in quarterbacks. He'll stand in there. He'll take the hits. High character guy, can move. We saw that in the Natty against Miami. Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders. I think that's a no-brainer. Arvell Reese, outside of Mendoza, probably the best player in this draft. Great linebacker from the Buckeyes. He goes to the Jets at number 2. Listen, Aaron Glenn has said pretty implicitly through or explicitly, I should say, in the fact that he's going to call the defense, and based on what the Jets have done in free agency, that, hey, if I'm going to go down in New York, it's going to be by investing in my side of the ball. I also like the idea. I had Arvell Reese going to the Jets in my first mock draft anyway. When the Jets signed Demario Davis, I'm like, oh, this is great. Number one, he's an excellent player still at the stage of his career, but great locker room guy, great presence. Who better to mentor Arvell Reese than a guy like Demario Davis? I think he's the pick for the Jets. Spencer Fano, third overall pick, going to Arizona. We know the Cardinals are almost certainly going to take their quarterback in next year's draft, so let's go ahead and shore up the most important spot in your squad at left tackle. Put Spencer Fano. He could play both sides, right tackle, left tackle. I think he goes to Arizona. Jeremiah Love, elite running back from Notre Dame. He goes to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, the running game is nosedive. I know that's shocking. Since moving on from Derrick Henry, Jeremiah Love, by far the best back in this draft. He goes to the Tennessee Titans at number 4 to give Cam Ward some help in the backfield. To our next 4 picks, which are the Giants, Browns, Commanders, and Saints. The Giants, in order to protect hopefully their franchise quarterback, they draft Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle from Miami. Again, Jackson Dart's a guy who takes a lot of hits, particularly on scrambles, but you want to keep him protecting the pocket. Obviously, you got Malik Neighbors. You've got Scadaboo. We'll see if the Giants maybe potentially draft Jeremiah Love. If he falls to them at 5, only time will tell. But I got Francis Mauigoa going to the Giants. Cleveland Browns, they need as wide receiver help as much as anybody in the entire NFL. I think they go Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I love this kid. Brings everything you could possibly want to the table. He's been overshadowed by Jeremiah Smith the last couple of years, and for good reason. You know, Jeremiah Smith's going to be a top 5 pick at worst in next year's draft. Carnell Tate's fantastic. You know, Browns need him. See if they can help out Shedeur Sanders with his weapons. Ruben Bain, easily, in my opinion, the best pass rusher in this draft. Commanders desperately need help on the edges. You give him to the Washington Commanders, give him to Dan Quinn. Maybe on the hot seat this year, maybe not. He's a guy that can develop Ruben Bain into being an elite pass rusher in this league. And the Saints, listen, you've got Tyler Shuck. You're like, okay, there's some momentum here. We obviously made some additions in free agency, but we don't necessarily love our wide receiving core. Chris Olave has dealt with injuries, unfortunately, with concussions. Jordan Tyson, by many folks believe he's the best receiver in this draft. Wide receiver, Arizona State. He goes to the New Orleans Saints. On to our next 4 picks, which are the Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, and Cowboys. Chiefs need an edge rusher. They've really never had a great one in the Patrick Mahomes era. Chris Jones is an interior guy. David Bailey, edge out of Texas Tech. Tech had an unbelievable defense last year, and it's reflected in how many first-run guys that they have. David Bailey, edge, goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Colin Cowherd, shout out to him, has always said it best. Like, you got to get your quarterback, protect your quarterback, and then make their quarterback uncomfortable. Well, the Chiefs got some additions they need to make to their O-line. I wouldn't be shocked if they go tackle here, but at the end of the day, I think they go David Bailey at pass rusher. Another pass rusher goes to the Bengals, who themselves, especially with Trey Hendrickson gone, need some help on that front. Keldrick Falk, edge from Auburn, goes to the Bengals. Caleb Downs, safety out of The Ohio State University, goes to the Dolphins. They just traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Jets. Caleb Downs is a playmaker. Obviously was at Bama, was then at Ohio State. I think he'd be a great addition for a Dolphins team. Jeff Hafley, defensive guy. Wouldn't be shocked if he takes a defensive back. Caleb Downs would be a great pick for Dallas. Jermon McCoy might be better. Again, maybe I'm biased because I'm a Tennessee fan. Jermon McCoy really didn't play at all last year, but in 2024, this guy was a shut-down corner. Brings all the physical traits. He's got great ball skills. Can cover guys, one-on-one man-to-man coverage. Dallas desperately needs help at the cornerback position. I think Jermon McCoy is the pick for the Dallas Cowboys. Going on to our next 4 picks, which are the Rams, Ravens, Buccaneers, and Jets. The Rams get a linebacker, Sonny Styles. That's probably the weakest point of their defense. It was secondary, but they've addressed it with Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie in free agency. You get Sonny Styles, the second-best linebacker from Ohio State. That helps them tremendously. Ravens have had a weakness at wide receiver. It feels like my whole life. When's the last time the Ravens had a truly elite pass catcher? Was it like, I don't know, I guess tight ends they've had, but I'm talking about receivers. Anquan Bolden was like the last really good, consistent guy for the Ravens. Denzel Boston, wide receiver from Washington, should help that. Akeem Mesidor, edge out of Miami, goes to the Bucs. The Bucs need to load up on that defense, even losing Mike Evans. They're fine. Baker, Bucky Irving, they got plenty of guys on that side of the ball. Adding a guy like Akeem Mesidor from a great Miami Hurricanes defense to Tampa Bay would help them tremendously. Todd Bowles is a defensive guy. And again, the Jets, they've invested in offense a lot, or defense a lot. They need to go offense at some point to help Geno Smith or whoever their quarterback is going to be in 2027. Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC, I think is able to solve a lot of those problems. Now we've got our next 4 picks. If we have those on the screen right here, here we go. The Lions, the Vikings, the Panthers, and the Cowboys. I think Detroit, we know they need to go pretty much start to finish defense. They could add to their offensive line. That is an option for them. Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, goes there. Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech. The Vikings need help on the interior of their defensive line. Lee Hunter, big guy from the Red Raiders, could be able to help them out. Dylan Thieneman from safety from Oregon, going to the Carolina Panthers, being able to help Bryce Young. I wouldn't be shocked if they decide to go with a playmaker type guy, but I think this is a good pick for them. And then Dallas, again, we saw the trade a few minutes ago, Osa Odigizua trading him to the San Francisco 49ers. So Dallas could potentially add more to their defensive backfield later in the draft. But given the fact that this is such a strong offensive line draft, taking the best guard, kid from Penn State, I think would be a great move for the Cowboys. Dak needs some help on the inside in that regard. So I think that's who the Cowboys select. I really hope this guy falls to my Steelers. We got Steelers, Chargers, Eagles, and Browns. Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle from Utah, going to my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, Pittsburgh's tried to invest in tackle, whether it's Broderick Jones, whether it's Fatanu. Neither really worked. Broderick Jones has been a disaster. Caleb Lomu, whether he's protecting Aaron Rodgers, or whether he's protecting Will Howard, or whether he's protecting next year's quarterback, Pittsburgh needs to go O-line in this draft. I think Caleb Lomu is the pick. Caden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State. The only thing that might hold Jim Harbaugh back from making this pick is McDonald's an Ohio State guy, and Harbaugh, obviously national champion at the University of Michigan, but he feels like a Harbaugh guy. Big, physical, nose tackle. Chargers want to be physical up front on both sides of the ball. Caden McDonald fits that need. Kenyon Sadiq. Listen, the Eagles might very well, maybe by the time we upload this video, lose Dallas Goedert in free agency. Even if they don't, getting a playmaker, by far the best tight end in this draft, to help Jalen Hurts, I think will help Philadelphia tremendously. And Max Ianachor, defensive or offensive tackle from Arizona State. The Browns have a horrible offensive line. The Browns have a horrible offense in general. So getting a playmaker early on with Carnell Tate and then getting a tackle for Shedeur Sanders or whoever their quarterback's going to be, I think would help them a ton. To our next four picks with the Bears, Bills, Niners, and Texans. Colton Hood, my guy from Tennessee. Dude is a playmaker. Dude is a nose to the football. A guy who really, really stepped up in the absence of the Tennessee's top two corners last year, one of them being Jermon McCoy, who I think is going to go to Dallas. Colton Hood, cornerback from Tennessee to the Chicago Bears. They desperately need help in their secondary. They've lost some guys in free agency. I think that would help. And the Bills need somebody who gets the quarterback. TJ Parker from Clemson is a guy who can do that. Monroe Freeling to San Francisco, tackle from Georgia, big guy, 6'7", physical dude. They might lose Trent Williams, again, maybe before this episode is uploaded or this clip is uploaded to the channel. You got to be able to protect Brock Purdy. He's got his weapons. You got Mike Evans, and you've got George Kittle, hopefully back from injury, and McCaffrey and Pearson, all these guys like Juwan Jennings. You need to make sure Brock Purdy is upright. Monroe Freeling can help them with that. And then another tackle. I told you this is a great tackle draft this year. Caden Proctor to the Houston Texans. By far Houston's biggest need. If CJ Stroud is going to look anything like the guy that he looked like, you know, in his rookie season, you got to be able to protect him. I think drafting Caden Proctor from Alabama would suit that need. And then final four picks in the first round: Chiefs, Broncos, Patriots, and Seahawks. Kansas City goes the defensive back, Mansour Dulane, who a lot of people think is the best corner in this draft. They've obviously lost two DBs, or actually more than two DBs in free agency. So Kansas City's defense on the back end especially has kind of been decimated. This is a guy who could kind of help fill those holes. Omar Cooper Jr., who made the insane catch of the year in college football against Penn State. He goes to the Denver Broncos. Denver could use a legit number two receiving option for Bo Nix opposite Cortland Sutton. Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver from Indiana, could fill that hole. Derek Moore, edge from Michigan. That was the biggest problem with the Patriots last year. Yes, they struggled to protect Drake May. They also couldn't get to the quarterback in their own right. Derek Moore, Michigan, feels like a Patriots guy. He could fit that need. And then finally, Seattle going defensive back from South Carolina. Again, Seattle's just been decimated in free agency, losing multiple key corners. So I think taking Brandon Sissy out of South Carolina would help them tremendously. So that's what I've got. Mock Draft 1.0. Again, this is obviously going to change and develop. And unlike last year, I think I'm going to incorporate some trades because you might have noticed only one quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. People are high on Ty Simpson. Outside of that, there's always that one guy that, hey, he interviews well. He has maybe that viral pro day moment, Zach Wilson years ago, and his draft stock skyrockets. I don't really see that guy. I mean, do you think it's going to be Carson Beck or somebody? Like, I don't vision that being the case. There'll be no more than two quarterbacks selected in the first round of this year's draft. I think because a lot of teams that need their quarterback, especially if their coach is a first-year guy, like the Cardinals, for example, are thinking, unless our coach is incompetent, he's going to be here next year. Next year's draft is far more loaded with good prospects. We can take a quarterback in 2027. So that's what I've got for my first mock draft of this NFL draft process. When we come back to the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, folks, is on the precipice of history. We'll discuss that and how he can lock up the MVP over the next few days after this 1-minute break. Maxx Crosby up live. So, excuse me. Schefter just broke another trade that also involves a Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman. They've got like an embarrassment of riches as it pertains to depth. Well, they have just traded Solomon Thomas and a 7th-round pick to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for another 7th-round pick. And as it's detailing here, or according to Field Yates, he says that the Titans acquire another player familiar to head coach Robert Saleh. Solomon Thomas was with the Jets, so familiar with Saleh's system. And this says that Thomas, Jermaine Johnson II, and John Franklin Myers, all Tennessee Titans now, were all defensive teammates with the Jets in 2022 and 2023. So Dallas gets a 7th-rounder. They move Solomon Thomas. Like, it feels like they feel, we're almost too deep in terms of, particularly the interior, which is why they moved Odigizua and got a 3rd-round pick out of it. But I think if you're the Cowboys, like, are you positioning yourself for a Maxx Crosby trade, getting as many picks as you can? Like, move your higher picks for Max and then use the lower picks to move up higher in the draft. I'm not sure what Jerry's strategy is in that regard, but I think Dallas has made some pretty smart moves in free agency, and I give them credit. I still think the Micah trade bites him in the butt. And again, unless Micah just has, God forbid, injury problems the rest of his career, which I don't anticipate, you can see his value and how much worse the Cowboys defense got last year. And then when we went to Green Bay, and it's like, they could get the 1 seed. He gets hurt. They don't win a game the rest of the year. Micah's pretty valuable. So that's where we're at. Also, big shout out to my amazing mom who got me a Chick-fil-A lemonade to keep myself hydrated during the show. Shout out, Mom. I appreciate that. Let's shift back to the NBA before we get out of here, because we talked about Bam Adebayo making history, 83 points against the Washington Wizards. Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, almost certainly is not going to hit that feat, but could hit one from a longevity perspective. Maybe just as, if not more impressive. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if he scores 20 points tomorrow night against the Boston Celtics, he will break Wilt Chamberlain's all-time 60-plus year record for the most consecutive games in NBA history, scoring 20 or more points. We can show you what that list looks like as we sit here today. Wilt Chamberlain and SGA are tied for first, 126 games, scoring 20 or more points, followed by Wilt Chamberlain again, who did it 92 straight games between 1963 and 1964. Oscar Robertson did that in that same time span, 79 consecutive games for Oscar, scoring 20 or more points. And then Kevin Durant between 2015 and 2016 scored 20 or more points 72 consecutive times. So again, with the exception of, it's basically old guys and then 2 OKC Thunder, KD and SGA. So listen, again, from a scoring perspective, this is truly remarkable. Again, it's what sort of what I went on with the Bam Adebayo thing. And obviously we know SGA is a better scorer than Bam. People are just kind of overreacting. It's like, is it really that big of a, I don't know, Wilt's held the record for 60 years. Like, you'd have thought Jordan would have broke it, or LeBron, or KD got slightly halfway there to passing Wilt Chamberlain. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This kind of shocked me that Kareem wasn't in the top 5. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar it never got even close to Wilt. No one's gotten close to Wilt, except for SGA, who, with a 20-point game tomorrow night against Boston, can do that. So that's remarkable in its own right. What I really want to talk about is this for this season for SGA, because the other night, Monday night against the Denver Nuggets, maybe the game of the year in the NBA in the regular season, just back and forth. You probably got number one versus number two as it pertains to MVP candidates. Many would argue the two best players in basketball, Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in OKC. Here we go. These two played a 7-game series last year in the second round of the playoffs. We might get it again. I hope we get it again if it's anything like what we saw on Monday night. Goes back and forth. OKC's up by like 7 with a minute and a half to go. Denver goes in a furious rally. There's some, there's some devastating fouls in OKC. And all of a sudden, tie game late. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander steps up and hits a game-winning step-back three on the right wing to win the game. Before we show you what Shai did in that game, let's hear what Shai had to say about that shot after the game.
Do you know you're going to take a step-back three, or just when you're out?
Yeah, nah, I had no clue what I was going to do. I have answers to the test, but like I got to see the questions first. So once I seen he was on my left and I was going right, I think it was Christian Braun that was in the gap. So I knew I probably was like, if I drove to shoot a midi, it's probably gonna be a contested with two guys. So I tried to separate from the three and get a good, comfortable shot, and it went down.
I mean, that's first of all, great quote. About knowing the answers and knowing the questions and not always the answers or whatever he said. So in this game, let's show what Shai did. It was maybe the best individual performance outside of last night with Bam of this entire NBA season. Show what he did against Denver. He was truly sensational. This man was a point or a rebound away from a 35-point, 15-assist triple-double. He had 0 turnovers. Nobody has ever had or scored that many points, had that many assists, and 0 turnovers outside of LeBron James in 2018. LeBron in 18, SGA in 2026, that's the list. 14 of 21 from the field, 3 from 7 from 3. That third 3, of course, was the game-winning shot. And he was 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So quickly on that, part of the reason I showed that is to show he was utterly sensational and outplayed Jokic, who in his own right was great. But also to say, and I think use this as the prime example of what I've said for about a year when folks say, oh, you hate SGA. First of all, I think SGA is a good dude. Seems like a family guy. Seems like a great teammate. Always available. By and large, he had an injury this year, but he's always available for the Thunder. You can count on him. Good teammate, the whole bit, unselfish. So on the court, and off the court, the way he conducts his business seems pretty exemplary to me. So I got no problems with SGA in terms of how he carries his business. On the court, I have never once denied how great this guy is. He can get to whatever spot he wants on the floor. His mid-range is darn near automatic. He can get to the rim at will. His three-point shot has just gotten better and better and better over the years. And by the way, he'll play defense too. I've had one problem and one problem only with SGA. Is what people would like to call the foul baiting. And the biggest reason that I have a problem with that, with Shai, flopping his body in the air or clearly not even attempting to make the shot or even get a decent shot up, but to draw the foul where he'll throw his body like almost backwards into somebody and just throw something at the rim, is because unlike another guy, another MVP guard, future first ballot Hall of Fame guard, he doesn't need that in order to be great. James Harden, yeah, he had a bag, step back three, the floater, the whole bit. Harden needed to get to the line consistently in order to be consistently great. That's why when physicality is more allowed in the postseason, and refs swallow the whistle, James Harden productivity plummeted. Not the case with Shai because he can get to wherever he wants on the floor. He's a much more gifted scorer than James Harden, without question. SGA doesn't need that to be great. So when he uses it, and when the NBA allows him to do it, unnatural motions in which he is not trying to make the shot, non-basketball moves, yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to complain about. Especially when you have guys, or especially when you have OKC in particular, who plays a very physical brand of defense. Their logic is, hey, can't call a foul on every possession. So you're going to have Shai and Lou Dort and guys like that be really physical on the ball. Can't call a foul every possession. It's kind of like the reverse logic when guys were, or actually I guess the same logic, when guys were hammering Shaquille O'Neal during his prime is can't call a foul every single time down the floor against Shaq. He's going to hit the free throw line. The game's going to last 3.5 hours. So if you're letting OKC do basically whatever they want on that end, and Shai goes into unnatural basketball motions without even trying to make the shot in order to get to the line, like fading away and just kind of like, of course people are going to have a problem with that. The biggest reason I have a problem with it is A, it's aesthetically terrible, and B, he didn't need that. Harden did. SGA does not need that. So I say all that to say this. This has been a very odd MVP race in the sense that usually it's one of two scenarios. You've got like a clear front runner, and then the question is who's 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you've got a couple guys that are going back and forth, maybe like a dark horse, maybe somebody who's not going to win the award but would love to be in the top 5. This has been the strange year because of the quite stupid 65-game minimum requirement, which was initially intended to prevent load management. And what it's doing is, in fact, punishing superstars who miss games because of legitimate injuries, Shai, Jokic, etc. SGA's got a shot to lock this thing up. So if you look at his numbers just on their face, of course, they're sensational. SGA's averaging 31 a game on 55% shooting as a guard. Like that's insane. But he beats Denver on Monday night and hits the game-winning shot against Jokic. Tomorrow night, he plays Boston with Jaylen Brown, who has potential MVP aspirations of his own. After that, you've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, Ant's not going to be an MVP finalist, but Ant's still an elite player. A guy who's a lot of folks believe could be in that category of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the best 2 guards. Shai's technically a point guard, but best league guard in the NBA. If he wins these next 2, particularly if he wins tomorrow night and breaks Wilt's record for most consecutive 20-point scoring games, MVP's a wrap. It's over. I'm not saying it's going to be like 2016 Steph Curry unanimous. There are some OKC fans trying to act like what Shai's doing right now is equivalent to what Steph did in 2016. To that I say, slow your roll. But Shai, to me, would be the clear and obvious winner. He got a huge boost. If he wasn't the favorite already, huge boost by beating Jokic, hitting the game-winning shot, and again, show the numbers, having one of the best individual outputs of the NBA season. 35 points, 15 assists, no turnovers. Only LeBron James has ever done that. That's it. Efficient. Only got to the line 4 times as opposed to the cheat free throws that he can draw and gets away with. He can score on his own, right? We know that. MVP race could be over by Sunday afternoon at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. If he beats Boston tomorrow night, plays well in it, breaks Wilt's record, then beats Minnesota on Sunday, it's over. It's a wrap. The question is who's going to be second. It's going to be Jokic, Jaylen Brown, maybe Cade, Wemby, who knows? But it will be over. SGA will be the MVP, and rightfully so. So that's what I've got. All right. That is any breaking news. Nothing's broken in free agency. It looks like a couple Cowboys trades during the show, so you have that. But if that's not the case, that's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. By the time we come back next week, you know what time it is. March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. We got the tournaments. Listen, I'm crushed that ETSU came up short in the Southern Conference Championship game to Furman, 76-61, the final score. That was devastating. It was a somber day on campus. Let's put it that way. We were all in the dumps. But shout out to the basketball team. They had an unbelievable season, won the regular season title. They were the comeback kids all season long. They were a second half team more so than a complete game, type of team. Great memories, great season. Fortunately, couldn't get to the big dance, but great season by the ETSU Bucks, and shout out to them. And shout out to the ETSU women's team as well, who had an amazing second half of the season to clinch a share of the Southern Conference regular season title. So shout out to the Bucks. With that said, hope everybody has a great rest of your week and weekend. March Madness is upon us, almost at least. And here's hoping that Team USA can get some help and advance the World Baseball Classic. I'm as nervous as everybody else is. I ain't gonna lie. I don't want to talk about the show today because I don't want to be in a bad mood. But regardless, hope everybody has a great week and weekend. We'll be back next Monday to preview March Madness, some NBA stuff, maybe some NFL news and World Baseball Classic, all of it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. But I'm serious. Aaron, do not come back. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.